I still remember the first time I laid my eyes on a Harley-Davidson Nightster. It was late night and I was doing a bike delivery. At that time I was doing all the walkarounds on the motorcycles. I wasn't an official salesman yet. This was back in 2007 when I was in my mid-20s. I saw the Nightster and I was like, wow, that's a really cool little bobber that somebody built. And then one of the guys told me, no, that's a factory production bike right there. And I was like, wow, Harley-Davidson did it. This is the future of the Sportster family. Hey guys, Matt Laidlaw here from Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson, family owned and operated for over 60 years in Los Angeles County. There's always between 1 and 5 Laidlaw family members here at all times. We're a true family operated dealership. If you're in the market for a Harley-Davidson right now, hit us up for our no BS pricing on our website or in person. I'm going to jump into the Nightster video now, but before I do, I want to bring up Harley-Davidson's Freedom Promise that they just announced. It's a deal right now between now and August 31st. If you purchase a brand new Sportster, you can trade that Sportster in within a year and get the full value that you bought it for on trade-in allowance towards a new touring or softail motorcycle. This is a 2012 Nightster, the last year that Harley-Davidson produced this bike. It was first produced and debuted in 2007, like I said earlier, and it was a mid-model year launch, so it kind of came unexpectedly. But to kind of paint the picture and give you guys an idea what was going on during that time, Harley-Davidson in the early 2000s just had a lot of chrome Sportsters. It was kind of that 70s era look, and you had a lot of laced wheels, big 21-inch front wheel with the 1200 custom. And I felt like the styling was kind of getting stagnant, especially since we needed to attract some of the younger buyers. And the Sportster family being at a lower price point, that was kind of the vehicle to attract those younger buyers. And yeah, I just felt like the Sportsters weren't doing its job in attracting some of the newer riders and the younger people and people that were new to the sport. And that's when I saw the Nightster for the first time, like I said, in 2007. And it was something that was completely different than any other Sportster. And yeah, it just totally took me off guard. And when I first saw it, to see a major manufacturer making like a bobber style bike straight from the factory, that was, something that I felt like at the time very groundbreaking. And a lot of us look back on it now and say, wow, they put a lot of black on the engine finishes and they chopped the fenders and made it a bobber. That's not a big deal these days, but back then during that time there was no one doing something like this. And so the Nightster was very, very groundbreaking. Now there were bikes that Harley-Davidson made that came before the Nightster. I know a lot of you guys are thinking of right now, namely the Night Train. The Night Train was on the Softail platform, and this bike first came out in the late 90s. I want to say like 98, 99. I'm not really sure exactly when, but that bike, the Night Train, ran for a really long time, and it was very popular among a lot of people, and the Night Train sold a lot. It was a really hot seller, but I don't feel like it launched the blacked out dark custom movement that Harley-Davidson later had, that was kind of spurred and sparked by the Nightster. And especially within the Sportster family, there was nothing that was all blacked out, bobbed out until the Nightster first came out. When the Nightster debuted in 2007, the very next year, Harley-Davidson came out with a bike called the Crossbones, and then also a bike called the Fat Bob, which the Fat Bob is still running today and is actually now their flagship performance bike, right alongside the FXDR. But if I'm getting off on the tangent of Softails and Dynas, I would be crazy not to bring up the king daddy of all Dyna bobbers, and that is the Street Bob. The Street Bob first debuted in 2006, actually a year before the Nightster, but that's a different family, that's kind of a different story. But yeah, the Street Bob was definitely the pioneer within the Dyna family to kind of start this dark custom movement. And there were key bikes within each of these families that collectively kind of started this blacked out, factory blacked out movement that Harley-Davidson quickly named their dark custom lineup. I don't think they use that phrase anymore. But again, the Softails and Dynas are kind of out of the scope of this video. I want to kind of focus more on the Sportsters, because I feel like the entire Sportster line, as far as the available models and what bikes were actually selling, were pretty much completely overtaken by this dark custom blacked out movement. So basically, in a nutshell, I feel like the Nightster represents a really big, bold step in a new direction for Harley-Davidson Motor Company. And I don't know who was in charge at the time, but they need a big pat on the back, because I feel like this move and this real big style shift played a big part in a lot of sales for Harley-Davidson in the past decade or more. And it's funny because the Nightster, when it was first launched, it wasn't an immediate real big seller. It wasn't until about 2009 where the style kind of ramped up a little bit more, and a bike called the Iron 883 came out, which I feel like a lot of people are familiar with. But yeah, a lot of the core Harley-Davidson guys that first laid eyes on this when it first came out in 2007, I feel like looked at it and were like, wow, what's going on here? What's Harley-Davidson thinking? What are they doing? This bike has no chrome on it. Because chrome has always kind of been synonymous with cruisers. If you bought a cruiser motorcycle, it was kind of like the more chrome you had on it, the merrier. People would buy a chrome Sportster or Harley and buy more chrome and bolt up more chrome to their bike. But yeah, when the Nightster first came out, the sales weren't great. They were okay, at least at our dealership. And this bike, the Nightster, which I don't think is very well known among a lot of the current Harley riders, which is part of the reason why I'm doing this video, because I don't feel like the Nightster gets enough credit for really what it started and kind of the revolution it started within the Harley-Davidson world. But it wasn't until the Iron 883 came out, like I said, in 2009, where this style really started picking up a lot of steam. The Iron 883 sold a lot of motorcycles. And it was interesting because around this time, between 2007 and 2009, that's when I started seeing a lot of new, younger riders coming into the dealership and asking about these bikes and picking up these motorcycles. And I feel like this Bobber Dark Custom style was very much in tune with what the up-and-coming riders and generation of riders wanted at the time. And so it was great timing. Harley-Davidson hit it on the head before any other manufacturer. Like I have always really said, Harley-Davidson has always kind of set the trend and paved the way in the cruiser class industry, within the motorcycle industry. And this style shift to these blacked out bikes was no different. So around this time in 2009, after the Nightster had been out for a couple years and the Iron debuted, it was almost like I saw the Sportster sales almost double overnight. It was just like a switch got flicked, and we were seeing a lot more of the younger, newer riders that weren't your traditional Harley-Davidson riders coming into the dealership and picking up these Sportsters. The very next year, in 2010, Harley-Davidson released a bike called the 48, which is a staple in the Sportster family today. But the 48 was, again, one more step in the direction of this bobber rat rod style. It had a 2.1 gallon peanut tank, laced wheels, big fat front tire. So it's just a little bit different styling points, but still very much your blacked out bobber-esque type of bike. And again, this just kind of fueled this movement even more, where we saw more and more of these Sportsters selling and more of the younger kids coming in and picking up the Sportsters, whereas the Sportster family was pretty much dead. And the other thing that was kind of happening with these bobbers as well is Harley-Davidson was doing more and more of their denim paint. The denim paint was first started coming on bikes, sometime around when the Nightster was debuted, around 2007. But the denim paint was getting introduced on more and more bikes, further up the food chain, like to the Softails, and also more on the touring bikes. And it was funny, once again, a lot of the hardcore traditional Harley-Davidson guys all hated the denim paint. They all said that it looked like primer, and when they were kids, if a bike or a car was flat and looked like primer, it was pretty much meant that you were poor and couldn't afford to have your bike or car painted. And so a lot of the baby boomer generation guys absolutely hated the denim paint. But the blacked out cosmetics on your engine covers, your forks, your handlebars, in conjunction with the denim paint, was really attracting a new buyer to the Harley-Davidson world, and it really breathed a fresh breath of air into the lungs of really appealing to a new type of rider, a new demographic within the Harley-Davidson world. So by the time 2010, 2011 rolled around, like I said, this style had picked up a lot of steam and sales were going up, like I mentioned, and a lot of the other manufacturers were taking note, and they basically, in response to this, started coming out with some of their own bikes that were adopting this style and this look, One in particular that was a direct competitor of the Iron 883 was the Yamaha Bolt. And I'm not sure if that bike is still out anymore, but that bike was directly targeted at the sales of the Iron 883. Guys like Victory were coming out with bikes like the Highball that were all blacked out cosmetics on there. Again, because they recognized that this was really helping sales and this was a popular style that Harley-Davidson had really gone full throttle forward with. And now today, with your Indians, you got like the Dark Horse and things like that, but none of those bikes would have existed or really come about had Harley not taken the first step and introduced it to the market and really tested it and gotten the positive results from it and sold a lot of bikes from it. So that brings us to today in the 2019 model year. We started off the model year with 7 different Sportsters in the Sportster family, most all of which have in some form or fashion this blacked out bobber styling. Now the Roadster has kind of a combination of black and chrome finishes, and it's not really a bobber style, it's more of a road racer type of style. And you've got the 883 Low, which is pretty much all chromed out as well. But over the last 12 years, pretty much the Sportster family and the styling it has pretty much been completely phased out in lieu of this blacked out bobber styling. So it's been very interesting to witness, and it's just kind of been a really big movement change in the last decade, like I've said, that have really helped bolster sales and really helped introduce a new generation and a new type of rider to the Harley-Davidson family. Now, I make this video too in part because I feel like this Sportster frame and engine, the Evolution engine as we know it, has been extremely iconic, and I feel like it will be gone at the end of this model year or the end of next model year. If I were to guess, and again, I don't have a magic ball and I'm not privy to this information, but I think that the Sportster family as we know it will be gone at the end of the 2019 model year. So I say this because there was a big loud outcry when the Dynas were discontinued. If you're looking to have one of these Sportsters in the way that America has grown and loved them so much, now is the time. These bikes will be gone soon, just like the Dyna. There's going to be a lot of crying. But just like Harley-Davidson made a gamble and a big move in bringing about this era of these bobber blacked out Sportsters, and a lot of the core Harley-Davidson enthusiasts didn't like them and rejected them, there was a lot of people that did like them. And so Harley-Davidson is always moving forward and doing the right thing to hopefully attract new buyers. I'll always hold the Nightster on a pedestal because I feel like the Nightster is the bike that's kind of unknown, but it's a motorcycle that really represents a big step and a risk that Harley-Davidson took. They were kind of like the first movers to this style that I've mentioned in this video, and so I think it's just a really cool bike that not very many people appreciate just exactly what it represents. A lot of people know about the Iron. The Iron certainly sold more motorcycles than the Nightster, but the Nightster to me will always kind of be the grandfather of the bobber era of the Sportster family. And a lot of people will ask me, okay, where do we go from here? And obviously I look at a lot of the trends and where the trends are moving to, and unfortunately I think the two kind of styles right now that really appeal to newer riders are both Groms and Scramblers, and Harley-Davidson isn't really there with either of those. I don't think that the Grom is a fit for Harley-Davidson, but I know a lot of guys buy Sportsters and dirt track them out. You got guys like Rusty Butcher that is making a big impact with that scene, and things like Scramblers. You got Ducati, who is known for their high-end sport bikes, but more than half of the Ducati sales are made up of their Scramblers. I think they've got like over 5 or 6 different Scrambler models that they offer now, and I feel like that style and the kind of that type of bike is very appealing to a newer, younger rider. So I really hope that Harley-Davidson makes a factory bike that is like a dirt tracker or Scrambler type motorcycle, especially since a lot of Harley-Davidson owners and enthusiasts buy Sportsters to then modify them to fit these niches. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Harley-Davidson has already come out with their new platform they're coming out with to basically build their Street Fighter, their adventure bike, and their new custom cruiser bike. I really think that this new custom cruiser bike is going to kind of take the place of the Sportster family in the next few years. Let me know what your guys' thoughts are. I'd be really curious to find out what you guys think about the Harley-Davidson styling that they've kind of gone in the direction they've gone in with the Sportster family in the last over a decade. And if you're a Sportster owner, what your thoughts are, if you've liked it. If you're someone that didn't look at Harley until they came out with the blacked out iron or whatever bike it may be, I'd really be curious to hear from you. And let me know your thoughts on where you see Harley-Davidson going in the future. I feel like kind of the writing is on the wall with these bikes, you know, them shutting down the Kansas City, Missouri plant and them coming out with some of these bikes like the 48 Special and the Iron 1200. I feel like just, you know, we're coming to the end of an era here. Let me know your thoughts on that as well. Thanks again for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe for all my future Harley-Davidson content. Thanks a lot, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.